President Joe Biden has decided to drop out of the 2024 race for the White House on Sunday, just a short time ago, releasing a statement to the American people saying over the past 3.5 years, we have made great progress as a nation with the strongest economy in the world, but that he has decided to instead endorse his Vice President, Kamala Harris, in this effort to try and defeat Donald Trump. I want to bring in Margaret Brennan, who is the host of Face the Nation, as well as Robert Costa, who's with me as well. And Margaret, I understand you've been speaking with some people inside the Biden camp.
We have, because President Biden made this decision in a very small group of advisors. They kept this very, very quiet. And from the calls I've made so far, there is an appeal to say, please don't make this about the process. Focus on the legacy of Joe Biden, that he made this decision in what he views the best interest of the country. That is, he finally heard the message that for 3 weeks now, Democrats have been saying quietly and increasingly more loudly, as they did earlier today, on Face the Nation, Joe Manchin, Dean Phillips, others joining the chorus of lawmakers saying that the president has lost the faith of the Congress and lawmakers and that he needed to pass on that torch. What he is stepping aside to do now with this endorsement of Kamala Harris, which he did all via social media. We haven't heard from the president directly. I understand we will in the coming days. But this is a message to quickly respond to the cacophony of voices telling him that he may lose this election versus Donald Trump. Now, we know from our polling data at CBS News that in a hypothetical head-to-head, Kamala Harris trails Donald Trump by 3 points. Joe Biden trailed by 5 points. That is, of course, where we are in the race right now. This focus, this onslaught will turn towards her. Republicans already coming out and saying that Joe Biden's endorsement of Kamala Harris without reopening a primary process somehow looks rigged, somehow denies the vote that primary voters set earlier on in the race we've had to date. So you are about to see an onslaught aimed at the vice president and to undermine faith in the process, the primary process and the selection here. But in this moment in time, it is worth noting that Joe Biden has come to a very painful decision for a 50-year legacy in Washington at such a consequential time, having passed bipartisan legislation, having faced a world in crisis, and by the way, about to go face-to-face with a world leader and trying to broker a Middle East peace.
Right. The President of the United States saying, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. I want to bring in Robert Costa. And Robert, obviously a very difficult decision for President Biden to make. He has been in elected office for some 52 years, has a tight-knit group of supporters. They were pushing very hard to try and stay in this race just as early as yesterday, saying he's going to be back out on the campaign trail next week. He's going to be meeting with the Israeli prime minister that's here in town. What changed?
This is a seismic political moment, a historic moment for this country. The first time since March 31st, 1968, that an incumbent president has decided to step away from the nomination. That same year, 1968, the Democrats were having their convention in Chicago, just like they will be in Chicago this year. For Democrats, this was about a pressure campaign on a president who was insisting that he wanted to stay in the race until the 11th hour last night. Based on my conversations with his confidants, his family was urging him to stay. First Lady Jill Biden, Sister Valerie Biden, son Hunter Biden. They believed, as he believed, that he could beat former President Donald Trump. But as Margaret said, he has been in politics since he was elected to the Senate in 1972. He has a political antenna. He saw the pressure rising. This was not something he wanted to do. But he was talking through with his advisors, Mike Donnellan and so many others like Anita Dunn, and saying, if I do get out, what do I do? Do I get behind Vice President Harris? Ultimately, there was a decision for party unity to make sure that endorsement was quick. It came today. He's not making a statement, I'm told, today on camera because he is still recovering from COVID. He's in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware right now. This is a personal retreat for him, a place where he goes for contemplation very often for many weekends. And I can't underscore enough what Margaret said. This was painful. for President Biden. He loves being in the political arena. Now stepping out. He will not resign the presidency. He says he will serve his term that ends in January 2025 as he continues to manage foreign policy and domestic policy. This raises questions now about how former President Trump will respond. We're standing by for a statement from his campaign and his top advisors. At the same time, there will be a lot of speculation in the coming days about who will be on the vice presidential slot for the Democrats. Will it be a governor like Roy Cooper? Could it be Secretary Pete Buttigieg? California Governor Gavin Newsom, unlikely to be that pick. It's unusual in American history due to the Constitution to have two people from the same state.
Robert Costa, thank you. At this hour, we are covering this breaking news as President Biden has decided to drop out of the 2024 race. He has endorsed his vice president, Kamala Harris, to succeed him. But it is worth noting that there have been a number of elected Democrats who have favored an open nominating process. The Democratic convention is in Chicago in the middle of August. So there is time still for Kamala Harris to try and wrap this up. But the nominating process begins again shortly, so there is much still up in the air. Let's go now to our chief White House correspondent, Nancy Cordes, at the White House with new reporting. Nancy?
Nora, I can tell you that as of last night, senior officials here at the White House and senior Democratic officials outside the White House were still being told that President Biden was in it to win it and that he wasn't going anywhere, despite all the Democratic calls for him to step down. And then that bombshell came just a couple of hours ago that actually he was going to be getting out after all, which indicates that if he was mulling this over, it was with his family, maybe a very small circle of aides, but that was being kept away from most in the Democratic orbit writ large, because it is obviously a very difficult decision, one that he resisted for quite some time. But clearly, he and those right around him decided that it was just too difficult to try to push back against this growing wave of Democratic lawmakers in particular who were urging him to step aside.
Nancy Cordes, thank you. And what kind of challenges does the vice president face?
Well, she's got 3.5 months to mount a presidential bid, which would be difficult for anyone. Yes, she has the Biden campaign war chest. Yes, she has the Biden campaign operation. But, you know, she has 3.5 months at the top of this ticket to convince the American people that she is the best person for the job. And that is just something that is very difficult to do. She has to sort of spring in there on day one. She does not necessarily have anywhere near the same size of a team within the White House that the president does, and she's got to try to, you know, get all around the country and make her presence known and convince the American people that she has what it takes to do the job. A couple of weeks ago at his press conference, I asked President Biden whether he thought Kamala Harris was ready on day one to be president of the United States, and he said yes, he believes she is. That's why he chose her. He pointed to her ability to hit the road all over the country, talking about reproductive rights, an issue that's very important to Democrats. He talked about her history as a prosecutor, something that she definitely brought to bear in her years in the Senate, on the Senate Judiciary Committee. But now she has to take those attributes, and the campaign has to take those attributes and sort of refocus the entire message, not just the message of the campaign, but also the message at the convention coming up in just a few weeks. Everything has to change to reorient against someone who, while she has served here in the White House with President Biden for the past 4 years, is a very different person with very different strengths, and that entire campaign machine has to reorient around her.